What are some phrasal verbs that we use when we're on the job?
Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome to WaiGuo Friends English. Let's jump right in. Today we have 27 phrasal verbs for you to be able to use as you're on site, at your job, at your company, and we're going to kind of break them into broad categories. The first one is just getting onboarded onto the job. So you're introducing yourself, you're going through orientation. Some things you might hear are lay down, like as in lay down the rules, not like lay down, but like lay down the rules for the job.
Yeah, this is where somebody will just come in and they'll give you the rundown, basically, which is another phrasal verb that we use as a noun. So when somebody gives you the rundown, they are laying down the rules. Now, we can use this phrasal verb in a much meaner sense. We could say, I lay down the law, okay? That would be not very nice, but we can. Phrasal verbs, and that's what this video is about. We're talking about the ways that we can use it.
Another one that sometimes they'll say is be up to, which is really interesting. Normally, they'll ask you, are you up to the job? Meaning, so you go through that orientation, you go through that training, and really it comes down to, do you think you can handle this? Because it's a lot of responsibility. Are you up to the task? Are you up to the job?
You could also say that you don't feel up to something after being sick, or maybe where you had a lot of difficulty, or you have a lot going on already in your tasks, and somebody says, hey, are you up to that? You say, I don't feel up to it. No, that's... No.
Another question that an employer might ask you is, can we count on you? That count on phrasal verb means, are you solid enough for us to rely on the fact that part of our business is going to be on your shoulders? So if you mess up, it's a big deal. And that's what a lot of employers and training sessions are about. It's to say, hey, can you handle this? Are you up to the task?
Just to be clear, to be up to something can also mean that you're up to something mischievous. Okay, like you're up to doing something, and that's not in this context, but you can use it like, what are you up to? Okay, it could be like what are you doing right now? But it could also be like, what are you up to? Like, what are you planning? Okay, so a lot of times people ask this of mischievous kids. So to be up to something or to count on someone, those can also be used in many other contexts because it's talking about responsibility. Or do you feel up to something? Are you somebody we can count on to make sure this happens?
The next one is focus on. So there's a lot of jobs at the company, but your job is to focus on this. So if you're an accountant, you're not worrying about marketing. You're not worrying about sales. You're not worrying about leadership. You're not worrying about training. You're worried about numbers. That's what your focus is on.
Right. And if you're watching this video, then you have noticed that we are focusing on phrasal verbs. So that's one of those things. This is another one that is extremely flexible, can be used in a lot of ways, but in terms of work, we can use this as well. The next one is equally as flexible. We could say to be geared to something or to be geared towards something. And this means that all of your preparation and all of your mindset is geared towards something. In the workplace, maybe it's something where your job has been tailored in a specific way to serve a specific purpose. You could say, well, I am geared toward this, but you can also say this in other contexts very easily.
For the preposition at the end, we can either say, like she said, we can either say to or towards. And this is actually more of phonetically based than actual grammatical reasons that we say this. And so if you say geared to or geared towards, you're just using your voice as the primary distinction between whether or not which one I'm going to say.
Yeah, towards has more of a picture in our mind, I think, of leaning towards something, because that's where we would definitely say toward. And if it's toward or towards, both are okay. It really doesn't matter. So in most spoken English, okay, now if you're writing, okay, we might have a little bit more to talk about there. But speaking in this context, you're going to hear Americans say to, toward, or towards.
The next category is when there's just too much. So they asked you, can we count on you? And the answer maybe is no, because I have so much going on right now in my life, too much going on at work already. And so, no, I can't take on that responsibility. So for example, the first one is to be snowed under. So all that work that I was just talking about, and you're snowed under. That's the idea of snow, like snow falling from the sky. And to be snowed under means that it just keeps coming. To be snowed under just means that you are kind of stuck there in that place.
You're trapped under the weight of what you already have going. So you have to dig your way out almost, is kind of the picture that comes to mind. Another one that's very related to this is bog down. Now, if any of you know what a bog is, well done, that's an unusual word. But a bog is basically a bunch of wet, marshy land. When you get bogged down, it's because you're trying to walk through that marshy land and your boots are sinking in to the ground and it's really hard to pull up. To be bogged down is to be slowed down by the weight of responsibility. It's like you're trudging through. That's another one that we can use here as a phrasal verb. But what you have already is very difficult to get through. So to be bogged down with responsibilities, just you have a lot of weight of responsibility and you're in a bog. Okay, it's very difficult.
Along with this is to load down or to be loaded down. This is normally used as a passive. So the boss loaded me down with more work and now I can't do anything. And again, bogged down, loaded down. The difference between these is that loaded down says that there's a lot of responsibility of weight. So you are trying to go forward, but bogged down has this idea of like resistance pushing back against you. And it could be your responsibilities, could be other things. You're going slowly. Loaded down is on your shoulders. It's a lot to carry. So your feet are unimpeded. Mm-hmm. You can go as fast as you want, but you have a lot of weight. You still have to go a little slowly.
Another word that we can use to describe just too much work is pop up. And this is a little bit of a different sense here. It's not that you're being loaded down or you feel like you're trudging through things, but it's more like things keep popping up. Little annoying tasks that have to be done by somebody, but it all gets shoved to you somehow, or that's just the nature of your workday. So little things keep popping up, whether it's problems, whether it's communication issues, whether it's just things that go fine and smoothly, but they just keep distracting you from the bigger task you're trying to get done. So we would say things keep popping up. By the way, we can use this a lot in other contexts as well. All of these actually we can use in other contexts.
So if things keep popping up and you are struggling to get ahead and something new comes up, then immediately you might get behind in your work. I mean, all that means is that task of responsibilities, you have like I think of like a funnel. A funnel only works if the rate of flow from the top and the rate of flow in the bottom is actually the same. So you can't just dump so much responsibility and work into your schedule, because if you do, that rate will actually be too much and it will overflow the funnel. And so that's what it means kind of like by get behind, is that there's so much work that you actually can't hammer it out at the same time. And so as a result, you have overflow or you get behind and now you have to do a lot of makeup.
There's another meaning of get behind you should be aware of. To get behind someone is to support them. Okay, so you're coming over to their side and you're supporting them and what they're doing. And we can use it in a work sense, but mainly we use it in the sense of beliefs or politics or things that we just really strongly feel should happen. Okay, so to get behind someone is to say somebody over there says something that I agree with and they're going to do something about it. They're going to make it happen. Then I want to get behind them. I want to support them in that. So in a work sense though, to get behind is more like fall behind. Okay, you're just... things keep coming and on all the tasks you have to do, you're falling further and further behind where you should be in a time sense.
And as a result, if you get behind, then a lot of times your work carries over into the next week. If you are a business owner or you work in a small business, you know that this is often the case where you have some things you want to get done, but because of life and the necessity of other things happening and small tasks that keep on popping up, those things get pushed off into next week. And so they carry over into next week.
Yes. Another term we're going to throw in here in this place is to boss someone around. Okay. You can put the object in the middle of this one. So to boss somebody around is basically a manager or somebody who comes up and they're just telling you what to do constantly. And it's like they're micromanaging, but sometimes it just feels like they're being mean just to be mean. So that's a term as well. We can also use this with kids. Sometimes you get a really bossy kid. They boss their siblings around or they boss their classmates around. We can use this in a lot of different contexts, and it means the same thing in most of these contexts.
The next category is about extra work or extra projects. So this is stuff that hopefully it's not going to make you get behind. Hopefully it doesn't carry over into next week, but sometimes it does. So for example, you might use sift through. Like I have to sift through these papers. I have to sift through my emails to find the information I need to finish this project.
To sift through something, if you know about a sifter, it's a kitchen implement that you use to break up flour clumps and things to make the flour nice and loose and fluffy. You can use this for powdered sugar. You can use this for all kinds of things. But the idea is it's breaking up the clumps. Okay, so to sift through something, you could also use comb through in this sense as well, as meaning to go through things in order to find what you need.
The next one is to check on or to check over something. So the idea with this one is that you have something that is important. You have something that you need to have eyes on, but not constantly. And so you're over here, you're doing your work, you're doing your thing, and then you need to go check on something. Whether it's at business, it's just saying, hey, we need to make sure that everything's okay. So check on that for me periodically, maybe a few times a day or a couple times an hour, just something where there is a set of eyes. You don't have to be super on top of it.
To check on also has this idea. If you check on something, it means you're getting eyes on one situation. But if you're checking over something, it means you're making sure multiple things are there. So your eyes are moving over something. That's the reason we would choose on versus over here.
The next one is look into, as in there's some research and we need to figure out what it is. There's some R&D that needs to happen in order for us to move forward. So look into the taxes situation of this for me. Look into the legality of doing this for me. It's saying take some time, maybe even out of your workday, to look into these other alternatives because those options could be very helpful.
Roped into means that you were basically roped into something. You were told to do something. We like to say voluntold. So it's not volunteer work, but you were basically told to do this thing, whether for free. Okay, we use this in normal life to say, like, I was roped into weeding the garden the other day. Okay, that basically means you did a lot of weeding for free because you were told and you didn't want to say no. But it's kind of like volunteer work, but it's also you were told to do it. So we would say voluntold. But this roped into is exactly what that means. I was roped into something. It means you were voluntold. It's not a real word. It's a messed up word. We break English all the time in order to convey a meaning. And voluntold is a great example of that. So roped into is voluntold.
Another one that is a little strange is pull up. It sounds very simple. It has a physical motion of pulling something up out of the washer, for example. But in this kind of context, it actually means pull up, meaning find that form, find that email, find that paper so that we can look at it together. Find that report. Can you pull up that report so we can have eyes on it so that we can look at it?
We can also say, like, pull up an old memory. Okay, so in daily life conversations, we'll say, like, I want to pull up this memory. I want to pull up this picture or something. And the idea is we're pulling up and out of the past. So it's a very interesting term to use in that way. We can also pull up old emotions. We could pull up old feuds, the old quarrels. We can pull those things up too. So it's interesting. I guess in a way, we think of our memory as like a box to pull something out of, if we can use this phrasal verb that way.
I think it comes from the filing cabinet storages. So you pull up a paper because they come out like a drawer, and then you pull up out the document. And so now we still do that even with computers. This is one of the ways that our language now still actually harkens back to language back then, where we were actually still pulling out documents
from a file system. Yeah. But then we could say that too, like pull up as in putting a presentation on the screen. So you say, like, pull that up and put it on the screen.
Next one is cover for, as in, can you cover for me? I'm sick.
And it's not like you like take a blanket and you cover them, but it's basically, and it's not necessarily like go in there incognito and do their job for them. It's not like nobody knows. It's not a secretive thing, but it's like, can you cover for me? Can you like cover my hours, or can you make sure that's taken care of? But we can also use it in a sense of, hey, can you make this sneaky? Can you make it appear like I'm still there? Okay, to cover for me as I do something wrong. Okay, we can also use it in that sense. But for work, we typically mean, hey, can you make sure those responsibilities are taken care of while I'm out?
Likewise, you can say fill in for, which is probably a more not sneaky way to say that, is to say, hey, somebody's got to be there. It's either this person or this person. I got you.
The next one is run around. And we use this in the sense of doing errands. We've said before, running around like a chicken with its head cut off. As ridiculous as that sounds, it is an idiom. It is a thing that people say here, especially in the American South. A very small town America thing to say, or rural America thing to say, is to run around like a chicken with its head cut off. And what that means is you have a lot of errands. You have a lot of things that you've got to do. And so you're running around like crazy trying to get all of those things done. And so it doesn't mean you're physically running, but it does mean that you're getting in the car and you're driving to place to place to place around town because you've got a lot of tasks to get done. So we can say run around in an office. Like you've got a lot of meetings to do today, or you've got to see a lot of people to make sure things happen for this project. But you can also say run around as in you had a lot of errands to do around town. So it's a very flexible term, but it's one that typically means like you are physically moving from place to place. We can also say thoughts running around in our head, actually. So it can be as physical as it can be, but if your thoughts are just racing and it's thing to thing to thing, okay, you could say that your thoughts are running around in your head.
The next one I actually really don't like to do, which is cross things off my list. I don't like to do that because I don't like to have a list to cross things off of. I do like crossing things off a list. Crossing off a list is not like a cross. It's actually just marking it off of a list. So if you have a list of things that you have to do that day, let's say your boss gives you 10 things to do, crossing things off that list would be knocking all 10 of those things off as you go throughout your day.
Yeah, and knock off. He just said it.
Not knocking it off. Knock it off.
Another one is callback. Now, callback can be you're picking up the phone and you're calling somebody back, somebody who you were just talking to, and you're calling them back. You could say, maybe your boss calls you and says, hey, can you look into this for me? And you say, sure, I'll call you back. That's kind of the idea. But you can also get a call back. So if you go through an interview process, the first round of interviews, you might get a call back and say, hey, you passed the first interview. We have a second one for you to go to. So you are getting a call back, which is a noun.
The next one is go ahead. And this one's very interesting because you can turn it into a noun, even though it probably doesn't look like it should be able to be a noun, but it can be. So if a person's saying, hey, I have a lot of tasks, can I get started on those tasks? And the person can say, go ahead. But you can also give the go-ahead, give the green light for something. And that just means giving them permission to start or get working.
To get started. Follow-up is the same thing. We can use it as an adjective, follow-up questions. We can use it as a noun, give me a follow-up. Okay, but you can also use it as a phrasal verb to follow up with someone. This term basically means like you go back and you continue asking questions, or you meet with somebody again over the same thing that you had talked about previously.
The next one is call on for help. Sometimes you can't accomplish tasks by yourself, and so you have to call on a person to help you. Maybe it's in the same department or the same company, but you say, hey, I have a lot of stuff. I am snowed under so many assignments. I need your help. That's to call on somebody. Call on somebody for help.
You can also use it for call on, as in, I want you to answer the question. So a teacher will stand in front of a classroom and say, I'm going to call on Jacob over there to come to the front of the room and give his presentation. Okay? You call on somebody by you're calling their name in a group. Now, a boss can do this in a meeting as well. He said, I'm going to call on Vanessa to step up here and talk to us about the marketing. Okay, you can say that as well. So call on is something that you may hear.
The last one in this category is to branch out. So sometimes you cannot be just so focused on one area. You need to branch out like a tree and go in other areas, other niches or something like this so that you can tap into other markets. Let's branch out and let's try something a little different.
Branch out is a term that we can also use personally to say, I am branching out into new skills or new hobbies. I'm branching out into new challenges.
The last category we're going to talk about today is no work.
Wait, we're off work?
Yeah, we're done.
All right, we're done.
So for example, you could say, I had off a few days, or I had off a couple of days and we went to the beach. It was so nice.
Or have off a few days next week. You will have off a few days next week, but sometimes in informal English conversation, we'll just say, yeah, I have off tomorrow and the next day. Have is very tricky for many ESL speakers. Make sure you're using the right form of the word. You can say he has off, I have off, they have off, or we can say I had off a couple days last week. All of those work.
One of the last things you do in your business workday, especially if you work in a brick and mortar, is you got to lock up. So you have to close up shop, you have to lock up shop where you have to close everything down, maybe clean the floors or whatever, and you'll have to lock it up and you come back tomorrow.
File away is another phrasal verb that we use. And this would mean that you're taking the papers, the project, the plans, whatever it is you have, and you're putting it in a file system for storage for future reference. Okay, so you're putting it back into storage, or you're making a new file and you're putting it away. It comes from a physical filing cabinet, but you can use this in a system as well. A computer system, a storage system, an online software system, all of those would work, but you are filing things away, meaning you're putting away. We can also use it to refer to memories. We say, I'll file that away for a future reference. Okay, and meaning like I'll remember that for future reference.
Unfortunately, one way to stop working is to be laid off or to lay off employees in your company. It's not a great thing, but that is the word that we would use. To lay off, or he was laid off.
Get to it is a phrase that means, hey, get to work. Okay, get to it.
I thought we were done with work.
Yeah, and this one you cannot say get it to. Okay, just so you know, you cannot split this phrasal verb, but you can say get to work. Get to it. That means get on task, get going.
Yeah, and sometimes that means getting out of that, like you leave work just to get back, just to get to it in another context. Another one is to take off work, or he took off work for some reasons. His wife had a new baby, so he took off work for a couple of weeks just to spend time.
Yeah, you could also say he took off, like he just left. So be careful with this one. The way that they say it will usually determine what they mean.
Another one is to free up time. So all of the snowed under meanings that we already discussed earlier in the video, the opposite of that is to free up time. So you actually have more time, which never happens. But if it does, we would say to free up that time.
You could say free time up for something as well. Like I need to free time up for my hobbies. The last one is to quit on. If you just hate your job, you might decide to quit. And so you can quit on your boss. You could quit on a project. You can quit on a sequence or a program. Quit on can be used in a lot of different ways.
It's weird because quit on, right? Quit is a very natural verb that we can use to stop working. But to say something quit on me means that there was a process that was ongoing. And it's emphasizing that that was a process. And you just, it's just gone.
That wraps up these 27 phrasal verbs, and actually a lot more. We actually did a lot of crossover with other contexts as well. But if you are interested in really practicing these phrasal verbs, because phrasal verbs are hard, they are very difficult to get straight and to work with. We've done these videos. We have a whole playlist on our channel of this plus natural conversations using these phrasal verbs in natural conversations. But we know that we could go a step further. So we actually put together a free course for phrasal verbs on our website. And you can click on it in the link below to go to that and to get some quiz practice in there as well. Just a little bit of practice that you can do in addition to these videos.
We hope that you guys take advantage of that opportunity, and we'll catch you on the next one.